Hello, I hope you're fine. This is the 10th episode of the Depression Crisp series. It's hard to say that, where we drape and try to make clothing in a easy manner. Of course, things can be done more exactly otherwise, but I think it's important to try to make different tailoring techniques available for everybody. So that's why I'm doing this. And this episode will be about requests, because I had some requests for people, and I'm really happy about that because it's always nice to know that somebody actually tries to do the things you want to teach out. So that's nice. And I actually had three requests, which I'm gonna do today, and one was from the video where I introduced to skirts and make an introduction to skirts. And the question was how you do top stitched pleats. And I had to look that up because I'm not I'm actually Swedish, half Swedish, half Norwegian. So I found out that top stitched pleats were like you have in old school shirts and in kilts, of course, but they are more loosely. So top stitch pleats in a skirt, it's quite easy to do. And the easiest way, of course, is to make a lot of pleats and just mount them at the waist. But that's maybe a little bit too easy. I want to have my pleats more fitted, if you can say that. So I prepared again a square piece of fabric, and this time I put a line on it. You can see it here. Uh, I don't use a ruler anymore. That's an idea I got because I want things to be more natural. So I just made a crease and draw this. But I used the measuring tape, and it's about 2 inches, 5 centimeters, somewhat between these marks I have on this line. This line is supposed to be a bit down to the hip area, but be sure to have enough up at the waist to adjust it. So what you do is that you start in one side, and you have to decide which way you want the pleats to close. And what I'm doing now is the ones that goes all the way around, and I do it in a lady's trouser way. You can see my jacket is this way, and the ladies is the hand over to the heart, and that's what you do all the way around. And of course, a lot of people say different things, but that's the way I do it. So I start in the center front here with my first pleat, and be sure to take notice that the first pleat is not the mark, it's the end of the pleat, so it's supposed to be between the two marks I have over here. So center front will be between the two marks, and I place it here. Maybe it's not going to be all exact because I'm standing on my head doing this, and I always put two pins in different ways so it stays very sharp over here. Oh, I should put my pins a bit further away. So the marking, the two marks, you have center front in the middle of them, pin at the side, and be sure to have a straight line at the side. And then this can be a little difficult if you have a big piece of fabric, but if you think it's difficult, just take the other corner and pin it somewhere so you just hold it up. And then you take not the first one, but the second one, and pull it, not pull, but place it on top here. So the first one of the center front is the depth of the pleat. So we take this one and put it all over to the next one, like that. And then you have to check that your line is straight. You can see if I put it down here, I get too much fabric down below. So I want it to be straight of the hip, in the hip line. So just adjust it, and then maybe, I don't know if you can see that, but the depth of the pleat will be exactly to, hopefully exactly to the next mark I've done over here. So you can check yourself with that. So I put it over there, and then I put a pin just in the middle of the pleat. And then I just turn it, place it upwards, and for the moment just pin it in place. And then I just continue to do this. Not the next one, you can see I was almost doing that. Not the next one, but the next one after that. Take it all over, hold it in place, and check that your hip line will be straight. If you think it's difficult, then you could just actually just pin these pleats in itself instead of pinning in the dress stand, and then you could of course adjust it up and down after that. And of course you could do it on the table too, but I would like to show you, so I do it on the dress stand. So I continue, and then I do not the next one, but the double next one, of course. I put it in and check that I have a straight hip line over here. You can see it turns a little bit upwards. So I pull a little bit down, pin, pin, and pin. And then I continue out to the side. And then of course you can see, why don't you do this? And I remove this so I have the fabric. And why don't I do this just flat on the table? Well, I could do that, but the thing is, now when you move out to the hip, that you want to drape it up to the waist. Because now I have all these pleats nicely downwards, and then when I adjust these pleats upwards in the front, nothing really happens, it just continue up. Of course, if you have a little tummy, it would do something else. But when you come out to the side here, the pleats will get smaller, and then you have to adjust them inwards to make a nice line. If I turn it a little bit around, you can see it. If I just keep the pleats, it will go forward. And what I would like to do is to make it deeper in the top, so I can get a nice adjustment upwards to the waist. And of course it's always going to bulk a little bit up in the top, so be sure not to use a heavy wool or something like that. And then you can see here, actually it tilts a little bit outwards, so I have to turn it to look at it and adjust them a bit, so I get a nice straight shape upwards. Adjustments, adjustments. something like that. And then, of course, you will pin them all the way round and put a waistband to it, and it would look something like that. This would be a little bit higher up. And then you get all these pleats. But what you realize when you do this, and you cut this away, of course, when you do this is that it takes a shocking amount of fabric. So you can do it in different ways. You can do pleats that's not as full. So I quickly always try to do things quickly, but it always takes time. I don't know why it is like that, but there you go. What you could do is to do what you call uh, savings pleats or poor man's pleat or something like that. And then you just take half of it instead. So I start all over again. I have the half there. And then I take this pleat, this first mark, and put it over to the next one. I put a pin. And then I have the space I would like to have here. And then I take the first one here and put it over to the side. And check so you have a straight hip line. You have to excuse me if it's not quite straight because it's a little bit difficult to do when you stand beside. But anyway, and then you take another one and continue. And I will make a point of this in a second, that you can see that I can go much further this time. I can actually continue all over the hip line and over to the back, because what I use now is only twice amount of the fabric. If you do full pleats, you will use three times amount of fabric of your hip line. So if you have a hip line for 100 centimeters, if you do these pleats, it will be approximately 2 meters of fabric, or what in yards is double. And if you do the other one, it will be 3 meters of fabric. So this is so much more inexpensive. Then of course you put them up here to nicely. But it doesn't look as full as the other one. So if you want the full pleats and don't have that much fabric, what to do then? Then you can do a middle one, almost like the kilts. Then you can remove this once more. And you could, for example, say that I wanted to have the full pleats further away or in the start. So I do some full pleats here. And when I do the full pleats, I take every second of them. Like this. And then I can say I can have an area where I don't have any pleats. And then I can start on the pleats again, for example. Maybe now this is not the cutest idea to have it flat on the hips. What you usually do is that it's flat on the front and then you have pleats on the hips. But that's up to you. And you could also experiment with actually turning it downwards, for example. If you want more fabric down here, you can transport the pleats downwards. And you can see that I will keep a line in the hip, but the line over here goes downwards. And then I will get a circular top stitch pleat skirt or something like that. So you can see I just put them like this. And correct the pleats. And then I take my waistband and place it on top. And what I get then is a much fuller pleated skirt down here. And you can do it the other way around. You can turn it upwards or play with it. So that was about the pleats. But remember that you have three times the width of the hip for full pleats, and for the poor man's pleats you have just twice the amount. So you can play around with that. Well, I removed this, and I had another request, and that was about the neck, the bodice we did, which was had a collar incorporated with the front part, and it looked something like this. And it's on the other side. We had the collar here, and we had the front part over here. And it continued in over here to the side. So you can see the front part. Maybe you can't see it, but anyway, fine. Turn a little bit around. The front part transports in under the collar, and the collar continue up here. And we had this straight front over here, and a little bit full hip. And then it went up to the shoulder area. And the question was about, maybe I just have to adjust this. You can see this color ends up in nothing over here. And the question was, what do we do with the back then? Well, you can do different things. This one was just cut after I made the video, so it just ends in nothing. Wasn't really thinking clear there. So, but what you would like to do is in the back, that always take notice of the color up here, because the color turns around, and in the underneath it you have the actual color seam. So you have to lift this up to make it proper. and mark this. And probably you would like to cut it a little bit too. And the prominent neck intersection mark you have to cut there too. And when you have this, you check the shoulder seam also, maybe pad it a little bit, and you see where you want your side seam. Now this was cut roughly and wasn't thinking clearly, so we have to make a side panel to this one. So I can cut this more even. Remove that pin. To the seam I would like it to have. And it's always smart to have some extra width under the sleeve. If you want to add a sleeve, you want some extra room here, otherwise you can't really move. And then you have a piece of fabric that's long enough to fit with the side, and we usually do just half of it to make it more easy to make even. So you again crease the back so it doesn't stretch too much and you have something to adjust with, and then you place it at center back and be sure to have enough on the top because it goes upwards in the shoulder neck intersection. So enough up here, maybe you can take aim for the top of your dress stand. It is a little bit high, but something like that. And put a pin at center back at the top and downwards. I always pin in the waistline. I like to have it focused there. And then we want it to be, again, have a straight hem all the way around. So we just sweep it around. And I never cut out the shoulder until later, so I just pin it on top here and just put a quick pin over here. And now you can see here that when I hold it in place, it's straight, and when it falls, it goes downwards. But when you remove things over here, it turns up a little bit. So just sketchy, turn it around the dress stand. And then you would like to start with a back dart. And again, remember not to do this too tight. And where you want to place it is up to you. In men's jackets, you don't really want a back dart. You try to move it as far out as you can. On ladies' jackets, more acceptable. And then you go over to the side, and since we don't want, since we have a front part, we just have to go into the side seam here, and then we can actually put a pin here in the side seam, and then we can cut away all this excess fabric. Be sure to have enough for the shoulder, but that shouldn't be a problem. And then you would like to cut in to the waistline, otherwise you have too much tension over here. So you cut in to the waistline, and then you can turn up the hem. I always like to do this in an early stage, so just see where I'm at. But of course, that maybe should be the last thing you do. It's so different what people do. And then you can see it starts to shape over here. Now it feels a little bit like it goes upwards here. So what I do is I connect it in the side, and then I can just adjust it in the back up and down because I haven't done the neck yet. So that's the trick I'm doing. I'm getting all the shapes down here and then adjust it up on the neck. It makes it so much easier, I think. And when you do pattern making, you usually do the opposite around. You adjust downwards, and it's a little bit difficult. So I like to do it, fix it down here, and then I just adjust it in the top areas. I can just pull it ever so slightly up here to get a nice straight line here. Wasn't straight at all. Just have to put it a little bit further up. So, and up here, and of course correct the pin out here too. And actually it's, when I have it like this, it looks like go downwards, but when you see it on the side, it's actually straight over here. So it's a little bit trick of the camera. When we have arrived up here, I want to do the neckline, and now I'm working with the lower stand neckline. So I cut inwards and up, so I remove a square up here, and then I can start marking the neckline and pin the start here. And then I have to continue up to the intersection. I can do that because I have released tension by removing the square up here. Maybe you can see it if I do like this. You can see I remove the square. So go up to the neck intersection, put a pin up there, cut, and suddenly it all falls into place. Make a few cuts in the neckline to get it to lay flat, and then you can turn it inwards to correspond to your stand, and it will look quite ready immediately. And then you arrive to the shoulder seam and the side seam. And what you would like to do first, it depends, because you have to adjust it upwards and downwards. I think I do the side seam first. So I turn it to the side, and then I can just adjust this area so it fits with my front pattern piece. And be sure again to have enough fabric over the back so it doesn't get too tight under the sleeves. And you can pin it in place. Probably have to cut some more, and you continue downwards to the shape you would like it to have. And you probably would have to adjust a little bit down at the bottom of the jacket. And you probably would like to have a nice round shape. It can be a little bit difficult, but you can see you get a nice shape out here. And you want the dart to be maybe a little bit more straight, so I remove this pin and I replace it so it looks more even. Pin again. Be sure to have enough fabric for the back or the behind over here, and then you continue upwards up to the back. And here you have to take care of not making it too tight, so you transport fabric inwards, put a pin, and then you can cut the cross section out here, And now I just cut roughly, but you would probably like to draw a line first. And then you will have a full nice back, and be sure not to make it too narrow over the shoulder. So now we just have this part left, and I can just crease it so it corresponds with the front seam. And here, if you want it to be snug over the back here, you can transport some fabric upwards to get a little dart, which we probably do as ease. And then you can just cut away excess fabric and turn it inwards to correspond with your front part. And remember, as I said before, maybe you would like some padding or something underneath it. And if you transport fabric in for this little back dart or ease, then you should notice that the shoulder seam in the back goes a little bit downwards. Or was it upward? Anyway, it's shaped because you transport fabric in and then you have to cut it away. So, and then you just turn the shoulder, it's not the shoulder, the collar down again, and then you have a nice clear back. Still looks like it goes downwards, but when I move it around you can see it's more straight. Small adjustments in the side, and you have a loose nice armhole over here. Probably should be a little bit lower, but that's how you can do it at the back. I actually made a video now, I think number 2 video for the basic bodies, and I make an extra video for the back of the jacket too. But the watch point is to be sure to work with your collar stand instead of with the collar itself. It's supposed to cover the seam, and of course to have a straight hemline at the bottom. And you will probably cut the dots too. So this was number 2 of the request, and I will remove this. And I had actually a request regarding having a jacket made without a bust dart. Actually, didn't say without a bust dart. It's sometimes a little bit difficult to realize what the question was, but it said without darts, I think. So I would like to say a little bit about that. So I'll go to the other side. And again, as we always do, you crease a facing or a start. And if you would like to make a label of your jacket, you have to remove a bit more. And you pin it in place. Be sure to have enough on the top. So if you want to continue it to the back. And help yourself with a pin on the shoulder somewhere to keep it away, the fabric. Turn it a little bit over, center front, pin in the waist, and in the bust area usually use 2 pins to keep it more in place, and adjust it at the bottom, but I don't do that now. And of course you want it to be straight down below, so we put a pin in the shoulder over here and in the back. And I'm gonna prove a point just in a second, so just bear with me, it takes a little bit of time. And just to remember, so when we do a label for color, I just open up here again in the bust area, and I would like to make a cut into there to release the fabric. I have to make a mark so I can make my label. So I cut all the way to the front edge, put it back in place, and then I can turn out the label and form it up to the neckline. Of course, I have to find my go flat up here, and I have to find my neck shoulder intersection, and again make a cut into it and pin in place, and then I can turn this all the way around to the back, pin the stand in place, and after that the collar, and I just fold it in ever so lightly to make the collar height I would like it to be. And of course I have to draw a collar shape. It comes from somewhere here. I think that would be nice, so I just remove this area. So there you have the color, but that was not the point. The point was actually, I just have to just leave it here. So the point was the darts over here, and what you can see immediately is that you get all this excess fabric here. So what do you do with that? Well, earlier on we did some fancy colors up here, and you can transport it upward downwards. But this is what makes the jacket straight down here. So if I just remove the pins here, keep it up here, then you can see what happens if I don't have the darts. Then all this will transport downwards, and you get a more full jacket. So that's what you can experiment with. You can have it more full downwards, but of course the thread won't fit down here then. Just turn it a little bit up. But it could be a nice coat or something like that. Or you can do a middle way. You can put it out here, and you have to cut out the sleeve for this. I just make a rough sleeve hole. And then usually have a bust dart over here to keep it up. But what you can do is you can do a little of each. So if I connect some fabric over here, and I let some fabric hang downwards, I could actually have a middle shape of it, and it would go inwards. So it's a nice shape downwards. Here we don't make the dot, we just connect it in ease, and then you will have a really nice shape on the jacket, if that was what you like. And you can combine it, maybe make a little dot here in the front if you would like that. So that's what's all about, is how much do you want down here and how much do you want up here. And of course, if you have wool, you can just damp it together. So, and of course you can play with center front too. But that's what you could do if you want the jackets without darts or bust darts. And what you usually hear is the people saying, well, yeah, I can buy jackets without darts. But what you always see with these jackets is that they actually fold a little bit around the bust area, even if you pad it up or everything. So that's what you want to do with that. So that was everything for me today. It took a long time, but it always does. It's a pleasure to have you watching my videos. And please comment and be creative. Thank you for watching. Bye.